Hello, friend, and welcome to Borgcast Original Series 2.4 with Anne-Marie and Peter.
Hello! And we start with a bit of Picard Watch. Because I has watched the second episode of Picard Season 3.
Right. Did it deal with any of my issues?
At least one of them was addressed, yes. I thought it was okay. There was plenty of spaceship action still, which is good. If you think back to Season 2, when literally we just had spaceships in the first episode and that was it. This was a vast improvement. But we shall see. We shall see.
Fair enough.
But tonight, it's the original series, and who mourns for Adonais?
Why is it called that when he's Apollo?
I know, that is a little bit confusing, isn't it? There was something about Adonais being, somebody of suitable physique. But
It would make sense for who mourns for Apollo, wouldn't it?
It would really, yes. That'd be fine. But I think it was a play on words from something that was called Who Mourns for Adonais, as in O-N-I-S. But anyway,
Right.
all a bit cultured for me.
Yeah.
Written by Gilbert Ralston, his only original series submission. Although he wrote 5 episodes of Gentle Ben. And for numerous other less interesting TV series as well. And this one's directed by Mark Daniels, who's up there with Joseph Pevney, really, in terms of quantity of episodes. This is 7 of 15, and this is the favourite of his episodes that he directed.
Oh dear. Doesn't say much for the others, does it really?
Showing your hand a bit there, but okay.
Captain's log, stardate 3468.1. What in the name of...
Am I seeing things?
Do not bring that one. The one with the pointed ears. Welcome to Olympus, Captain Kirk. Let the lesson begin.
No God to us, mister.
So you start with a lieutenant in science/medical blue. She's been up all night working on a report.
Carolyn Palamas.
See, I caught the Carolyn, but not the surname.
Yeah, I'm not sure the surname is ever used on screen.
It is at one point. She says, "I am Lieutenant, whatever her surname is."
Oh, that's right. Yes, he asked for her name. Yeah. Played by Leslie Parrish, who was in The Manchurian Candidate. Yeah, an excellent film.
Yes, it is.
She also had 3 different roles in 60s Batman. Was in The Man from U.N.C.L.E. and our cheesy new favourite, Kraft Suspense Theatre.
What?
We mentioned this before. It was a mystery-type show, but it was sponsored by Kraft Cheese.
It was all the cheese.
All the cheese.
Right. Okay.
And can you guess which famous composer put the theme together? Okay.
Yeah.
What do you think? Mind you of anything?
Yes. It sort of reminds me a bit of do 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 do. do.
Not so much.
No, and a little bit of Jaws.
Yeah, exactly. So therefore,
John Williams.
theme by John Williams.
Really?
Yes.
Wow. Wow.
Pretty distinctive, huh?
Yeah.
You can see where Jaws came from, can't you?
Yeah. Gosh. So, Bones initially seems to flirt with her, but then Scotty's all sort of like, "Oh, you must be really tired. You must need some coffee." And Bones is concerned, and Kirk's just not like, you ever seen anybody act like that over coffee? And I'm thinking, yeah, I need coffee. I'd be like that over coffee. Wouldn't care who was offering it to me. I'd be like, yes, I am really tired. I've been working all night. Give me the fucking coffee. I would be like that for coffee. He clearly just doesn't understand the coffee need, does he? But anyway, and then you have this weird shit stuff from Bones.
Oh, don't.
That it's like, oh, I'm concerned because Scotty thinks he's the man for her and she's not sure that he's the man for her, but one day she'll find the right man and leave the service. What the fuck?
I know.
I mean, I know it used to be the case that if you got married, you had to leave, like, your employment, but I wasn't sure that was even a thing at the point that Trek was being written.
It was very much so, I'm afraid, yes, in the 1960s.
Or possibly in the US, because I don't think it was in the UK at that point.
I'm not sure. I think it was still a bit like that here.
Well, no, because I think that at least here, by that time, you left when you were pregnant, and the concept of maternity leave didn't happen. You didn't leave when you got married. That was, like, pre-war.
Right.
Bloody hell. It was just like, I'm just like, what the fuck? Also...
Stands out like a sore thumb, doesn't it?
Really does.
Welcome to the future, where women get married and then have to give up their jobs. What? Hey?
Yeah, it's an alternative future. See the latest Great Derelict for alternative timelines and down the wrong trouser leg of time. But yeah, it's...
Was there something about Sylvester McCoy then?
What?
Sorry, he used to put ferrets down his trousers. Anyway.
Wow. No, I don't think... That's a Terry Pratchett saying, down the wrong trouser leg of time.
Oh, right. You can see why I thought Sylvester McCoy now, can't you?
Whatever, yes. But this really dates it. I mean, occasionally you get things that don't, this really does. And I guess, was DC Fontana involved in this at all?
Well, I don't think so, no.
Because she might have sort of challenged that line and said in the future that might not be the case.
Maybe. Unfortunately, some of her episodes have been equally...
Yeah, but we don't know how much they were written by Roddenberry, though. But, yeah, just rubbish. As, of course, nowadays, A, she wouldn't leave just because she'd found someone, and B, the person she'd found could be any gender, any species, to be honest, really. So, ugh. Anyway, the report she's paired is all ready for bollocks for.
It's bollocks for, but you just know that's what Amory was going to call it.
Yeah. Yeah. And then suddenly on the screen, they see a green blob. And then Chekhov and Sulu were there at the same time. Is this the first time?
No, second time, I think. They were together last time.
But Chekhov wonders if he's seeing things, and then Sulu says, not unless I'm seeing the same. And it's a giant hand. It's not flesh and bone. It is an energy field. And full reverse doesn't work, so they get grabbed and they can't move. And that's your teaser.
They don't make them like they used to, those guys. And I can't get used to the way that it is today.
Yeah, now the hand was redone in the remastered version.
Doesn't look
CG.
a lot different, to be honest.
No, the later shots where it's grabbing hold of the Enterprise do look better with the CG one. For some reason, it goes a bit grey, and it doesn't look particularly like it's holding the Enterprise, whereas in the CG one it does. But the thing with the hand approaching, I mean, that's no different. I don't know why they bothered remastering that, because it's a hand, which is a weird thing, but, redoing it in CG doesn't make it look any less weird.
Yeah, so after the teaser and the big giant hand, you've got them all on the ship trying to work out what to do. Sensibly, Kirk is saying, get a message to Starbase 12. I presume that's the nearest starbase. Sulu is saying that the helm won't respond. And Spock says that it's energy, not tissue, but the energy has unusual wavelengths. They try reversing the forward tractor beams to repel. It doesn't work. And then instead of a giant hand, you have a giant head, and it says, welcome, my children. It's been 5,000 years. And you're like, okay.
So this is Michael Forrest.
Now, I recognised him. Why did I recognise him?
Not sure. He was in a couple of those fan films that Paramount stepped on a while back, but you didn't see those.
No.
He was in Tom Hanks' Star Stowaway, which we saw not long ago.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
He was also in Gilligan's Island.
Those poor people.
We never got that in the UK.
And a lot of westerns.
Probably Stowaway, then.
And also done a lot of voiceover for animations. I think it's a good performance. He's got a mighty voice.
Yeah.
Even if it is slightly treated electronically.
Yeah.
Apparently, Forrest claimed that Shatner refused to be in shot with him, as Forrest was so much taller than the star. Can't kind of believable, isn't it?
Yeah, very.
Add him to the list of guest stars whom Shatner was cheesed off with, eh?
Oh, which is most of them. Was he, just out of interest, he acted well against Mark Leonard. Was he cheesed off with Mark Leonard as well, or did he get on with Mark Leonard? Do you know?
Shatner? Yeah, no, he got on fine.
Okay. So, yeah, then he says, have you learned to know patience? And he names a load of Greek gods, something he does an awful lot. It's just like...
There's showing off, isn't there, going on here?
Well, I just wondered if they not invented the rule of 3 at this point.
No, that's not a thing yet.
Yeah, because he just names too many and you just get bored. And he says, you will obey me, or his hand will crush the ship.
I'm crushing your ship.
And then they count up the amount of pressure. Now, most of the time in the UK we use metric, but for whatever reason, when it comes to animals, we're still using imperial. So if you go to a zoo and they talk about jaguars, they talk about the fact that the jaguar has the strongest bite in terms of pounds per square inch of any animal.
I was going to say, what's this got to do with anything? Okay, we're getting there, are we?
PSI.
Right. Talk about a long run-up. Blimey.
Sorry. Whereas here they use GSC. Now that's grams per square centimetre, which is presumably the metric unit, but I'd never heard of it. Even though we're mostly metric in the UK.
You usually, not always, but usually uses metric, even though the United Statesians don't.
But because we generally use metric in the UK, I'm used to understanding.
Except when we don't, yeah. I mean, we're really mixed up in this country.
We are a bit, aren't we?
You might have a go at the United Statesian for using imperial, but at least they're consistent about it.
Yes. Whereas we apparently still use pounds per square inch when we don't use pounds anymore, unless we're weighing people. But otherwise we don't. We don't use inches anymore, unless apparently we're measuring pressure for some reason. Yeah, go figure. And I thought previously that it was just my generation that was a bit mixed up. But no, I mean, that would involve younger zookeepers using GSC, wouldn't it?
I mean,
no.
Plus we've got miles per hour still. I mean, yeah.
Oh, yeah, we do. But how long is a chain?
I don't know.
Because we do yards, but I don't know how long a yard is.
How long is Mick Fleetwood's beard? I mean,
Yeah! Weird. And Wales is everything. Your comparison is compared to the size of Wales.
Yes.
But I don't know how big Wales is, so
Wales
how does that help?
Wales is some sort of metric standard for some reason, but
Yeah, sorry, we're a bit messed up in this country, sorry. Anyway, then what's his face, we later learn is Apollo, appears, and he says he wants them all to come. He doesn't mention Uhura at all. Which is, whereas he wants the beautiful woman to come. So immediately I'm like, racist much?
Yeah.
And then he says, don't bring pointy ears, he looks like Pan, he's boring. I'm like, fuck off. So...
Hey, on the upside, at least we don't get all 3 of the main cast on the planet for first time, I think, this season, so...
Yeah, but even so, it's just sort of... Actually, if you knew your history, you would know that not only is Nichelle Nichols bloody attractive anyway, she would have been considered attractive in that society. It's just very specifically white American society is not necessarily considering her attractive, i.e. the writer. Whereas in ancient Greece / ancient Rome, because they get that mixed up a bit. I don't remember whether Apollo is Greek or Roman.
That one's Greek. They're mostly Greek names. There's one
it should be
where
Heracles.
they use the Roman.
It should be Heracles, not
that's the one.
Hercules.
Yeah.
But yeah, she would have been described as Nubian. And would have been considered very attractive, because she is. I mean, I would. Anyway, and then there's a landing party that comes down, and actually it does make sense from a ship point of view for Carolyn, who's, as I said, she's Lieutenant Lama or something, but it wasn't Lama, was it?
What?
What was her actual name? I didn't catch it.
Oh, Palama.
There we are, Lama.
Yeah, something like that, yeah.
What a Palama. Anyway.
Palaver, I think you're thinking of that.
Yeah.
Palamas.
Anyway, Carolyn, anyway. It actually makes sense from a crew point of view for her to be done because of her knowledge.
Specialism,
Yeah, and I liked that aspect of it. That, okay, Apollo might have said, oh, you're coming because you're beautiful. And she's sort of like, is that the only reason I'm here? And they actually say to her, no, you've got the right expertise and we actually need your help. And I liked that. So then he says, I am Apollo. And then he looks at Caroline and says, "Oh, you're mother of the most beautiful women in the universe." You're like, "Oh, fuck off." And then he says that they can't leave and he becomes a fucking giant.
Yes, he enters Jolly Green Giant mode. Yes.
Oh, dear.
I thought it was a pretty good effect for its day.
Yeah, the effect isn't bad. I just find, I'm just like, oh, there's more impressive things than being 72 feet tall or whatever.
Unfortunately, it's obviously a studio set again. The greenery never looks real, does it?
No, it's because it's overlit, but I don't know how it would have appeared on the tellies at the time.
Mm-hmm. And we do get a fun-size Acropolis as well, which is quite cool.
I did quite like that. Yeah. It reminded me, I used to have... Now, it wasn't Lego, because they didn't click and connect. It was something you balanced and they were plastic. And I had a sort of Greek-themed one, but they weren't white, they were sort of creamy, and you balanced them on top of each other as these bricks and made things. Any idea what that was?
No idea at all.
Oh, I had some kind of weird shit ancient Greek playset then.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
My first orgy kit or something. Maybe not.
I was like, I don't know, 6? Bloody hell. What are you on? On the ship, Spock wants to reverse the polarity of the neutron flow.
Pretty much, yes,
Yeah.
which is nice.
Yeah. And then on the planet, Bones says fascinating, and I like that.
Yeah.
That was nice. And then you have Kirk going, what if he's really Apollo? And initially Bones is like, what the fuck? And he's like, no. What if 5,000 years ago he appeared and the myths and the Greek myths is what the people at the time made of it? What he wants is worship and tribute and loyalty. Does this not make some kind of sense? Mm-hmm. And is this the first of that trope?
I'm not sure if we've had any Von Daniken stuff yet. Possibly not. In Star Trek, anyway. I mean, it's quite a regular occurrence in Doctor Who, let's face it. But yes, possibly not in Trek yet.
Yeah. Okay. I just wondered. I think you take over now because I started drinking beer.
Yeah, we mentioned about Scotty getting all annoyed because Apollo wanted to take Palamas off.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there was some great stunt work as he got blasted.
Yeah, I
over
like
the
the
table.
blasting. That's good, and he melts the phasers, doesn't he?
Yeah,
Apollo? Yeah. And another thing that fucked me off is he turns around to Caroline and says, "You seem wise for a woman."
Yeah,
A woman?
Fuck off. she just is wise. You cunt.
yes.
And he puts her in fucking pink skimpy clothes.
Yeah, well, yes, I say proper Greek clothing, but I'm pretty sure that Greek clothing was never that skimpy and bizarrely designed, but there we are.
No, because do you know they're the ones that invented the so-called Muslim veil?
No, all right.
Yeah, it was the ancient Greeks that made women cover their heads and their faces and stuff when they went out, and they were the whole modesty thing, and that's the origin of the idea that women should be modest and cover up. So it may now have a religious aspect, and I don't dispute that, but his origin is
Well,
not
no, I mean,
religious.
in Islam, it's not in the Quran, is it? It's literally just the certain Islamic cultures have.
Yes, and it's coming from the Greek in terms of spreading out from that area. I think there is something in the Quran about modesty, but it's not necessarily explicit what that modesty looks like. The actual veil is Greek.
That's today's RE lesson, anyway.
Sorry.
We cut to some stock footage of a lake before returning to the obvious studio for Apollo to try his charms on Palamas.
And they shouldn't have done that because
it makes it worse.
You could have been, by that point, suspending your disbelief in the
Possibly.
set. And then they cut to stock footage of a lake, and that takes you out. And then you've even more obvious that it's a studio set.
He reflects that they had to leave Earth as the gods stopped being believed in and couldn't exist as only memories, which is very Terry Pratchett,
isn't it? Small gods. Yeah.
Well, that doesn't explain how he's able to appear to the away team, of course, because they didn't believe in him as a god. So, anyway, they end up snogging. Hurrah. The rest of the away team are also struggling to find Apollo's power source. Chekhov suggests that he's like an electric eel and starts listing a bunch of other aliens who have that power before McCoy stops him listing things Spock style, having been contaminated by the Vulcan.
Nice.
Kirk tells the ensign that he's earned his pay for the week. Money again.
Yeah.
Concerned about Palamas, Scotty gets lightning-fingered again for his troubles. Although, to be fair, he calls the god a bloodthirsty Saracen, which is something of a medieval religious slur.
Yeah, just a bit.
Yeah. Not only racist, but completely inaccurate in context, but there we go.
Yeah.
When Kirk threatens him, he gets force-choked and goes down in a barrage of bad shacting.
Oh, very, very bad acting. I needed more beer at that point.
After his efforts, Apollo begins to fade, which Chekhov notices.
And I like that. I like
Yeah,
that
he
it's
gets to
Chekhov.
shine in this episode,
He does a
doesn't he?
bit. I like that he notices. And I like that he comes over and he says, Captain, I don't know if this is significant or not, but this is what happened. And I like that Kirk goes, no, it is significant. Thank you, that's important. And it's just a nice little exchange.
Kirk decides to overwork their enemy, but McCoy warns that might get them killed. In that brilliant scene, the best scene of the episode by far, we see Uhura at work fixing her console.
Oh, I love it. And it's a call forward, if you see what I mean, to Strange New Worlds, where we've seen her when she was on rotation as a cadet with Hamer, learning all this engineering stuff. And there she is, she's doing all the engineering stuff, but then she says, like, oh, I haven't done this in years. And you're like, yeah, because you finished your rotation and you've been a comms officer. But actually, you had training with the awesome Hamer.
She gets complimented by Spot for her talents, which is nice.
Yeah, he's nice.
Quite why she needs to wear blue overall over her uniform to do this isn't clear, but hey, it's good to see her doing something more than just saying hailing frequencies open. So.
I don't know whether the overall needs to be blue, but I like the idea that she has an overall, because you get that in DS9. That's where their uniforms come from. And we've seen the overalls before, but they were more of a beige.
We've seen we've seen Enterprise crew wearing overalls, but not over their uniforms instead of. That's the weird thing about this. But anyway.
Fair enough. Maybe she didn't have time to change. She just stuck it over the top.
We also see Spot directing Sulu and Mr. Kyle, which is all good stuff. Kirk tells Apollo that mankind has no need for gods. We find the one quite adequate, which
I like that.
Pretty sure wouldn't be said in a modern Trek series.
No, although it does when he said that, though, it immediately reminded me of that episode of Deep Space Nine where Worf just goes, Klingons killed our gods.
Yes.
I love that. That's just awesome.
They were too much trouble. The male members of the away team attempt to taunt Apollo into using up his power, but Palamas pleads for them, much to Kirk's frustration.
Yeah, but she doesn't understand. She hasn't been part of the conversation. She doesn't know.
Apollo orders Kirk's crew down to the surface to settle and worship him. Nice. We get more lovey-dovey stuff between Apollo and Palamas before she appears to the away team to give him a message of peace, but gets ordered to reject Apollo by her captain, appealing to her loyalty and duty to the human race.
Which is fair enough.
I guess, yeah. Uhura manages to get through to Kirk, and Spock reports the power source is the mini Acropolis. Palamas informs Apollo that she must get on with her work, which is studying him, which goes down as well as you might expect.
Yep.
She finally comes across as having some backbone in this scene. And she finally tears him a new one for only having power over women due to the thunderbolts he throws.
Yep.
And I really like her performance, because it goes from she's kind of enthralled to him to, actually, no, this isn't right. And, you know, she has some strength at the end.
And I like that, yeah. And it shows, to my mind, that it's right that she's a Starfleet officer.
The wind machine goes into overdrive as Apollo throws a strop. And is there a suggestion of rape at this point? She's lying on the floor screaming.
Yeah, I wondered.
And then after that, she's rather bruised, although thankfully fully clothed, I suppose. So, but yeah, that was a bit, ooh, what's going on here?
Yeah.
The Enterprise fires on the mini Acropolis, melting it down. Would that have worked if Palamas hadn't stood up to Apollo, though? If not, arguably, she's one of the strongest powerful women in the series that we've had.
I would think so, because Kirk does say earlier that if she doesn't play her part, they can't.
So
succeed.
she weakened him so they could zap the. I think they just needed a bit more sort of underlining, but that's good.
She didn't do it on her own, but she played her part and it was needed.
Yeah.
Whether or not it was rape, I don't know, but I would say it was definitely assault.
Apollo is left in tears, realising the time of gods is gone, and he goes all jolly green giant one more time before vanishing.
And I just have no sympathy. And he names all the fucking gods again. I'm just like, oh, fuck off. And he says things like, oh, I loved you. And I'm like, no, you didn't. I would have given you everything. No, you wouldn't.
It's a good acting
I'm not criticising the acting performance. I'm criticising the writing.
And the arrogance is kind of, that's what you'd expect. Well, I think, he's going to be arrogant like that. I don't think it's a problem with the writing.
Well, apart from naming all the fucking other gods.
Yeah, okay. They do lay that on a bit thick. It's like, let's have our culture here. But, yeah, other than that, I thought it was pretty good. In the original draft, Palamas would have ended the episode discovering she was pregnant with Apollos' child. I'm glad we didn't go there.
Fucking hell, I'm glad somebody made that change.
Instead we get McCoy and Kirk ruminating on how they wish they didn't have to destroy the temple and on what Greek civilization gave them. What have the Greeks ever done for us? So again, it's all very Von Daniken and quite a downbeat ending for the original series. No, jolly laughs on at Spock's expense.
But you say it's Von Daniken. At least it's Von Daniken in white culture.
Well, that is the upside of it, isn't it? Yes. Yeah. In this case, it's the Greeks that were helped out by the gods. Yeah, but it's still Von Daniken, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's still crap.
Yeah. But at least it's, it's not your usual...
It's because, that just assumes constant progress, which, of course, that isn't how life works.
It's more like the demons in the Doctor Who episode, where...
yes, that plays the Von Daniken role again.
Yeah,
in
but
White
again,
Society.
it's all of civilization, where the biggest issue with Von Daniken is that it's mostly...
Tends to be like Egyptians.
How
and stuff.
can these people who aren't white possibly have done these things? It must be aliens. And that's usually the issue with Von Daniken theory.
I think there's some iconic stuff here with the giant Apollo and the big hand in space. It's silly, but it's iconic. And Lower Decks has made a bit of this in the past. Is it the best of the Kirk versus godlike alien stories? They're never my favourites, so...
No, I think my difficulty
is... It's a low bar.
Yeah, I think my difficulty is I don't like them, as a rule. But I like the performances in this. I don't think there's any... Apart from when Shatner is attacked and all the fucking shacking. Apart from that... I don't think there's bad acting in this. No. I think all the characters are very well acted, whereas one of the problems in some of the others is that the godlike beings in particular are not necessarily very well acted.
And it starts with dodgy sexual politics and then ends up with a woman standing up to a god, so it's got that going for it.
Yeah, that's good. that bit's good.
I'd still rather Kirk be facing off against Romans or Klingons, though, it has to be said. That's Star Trek for me, rather than this slightly strange... fascination they have with constantly having godlike aliens, but there we go.
I think that's a Roddenberry thing.
It is, isn't it? Yeah.
I wouldn't mind if they did it once.
Yeah. Once would be quite enough.
Worth exploring once is a good idea, but just you don't.
We certainly have worse versions of this, and I think this was better than the one with Landru.
Oh God,
that was crap, wasn't
it? That was.
So bad. I think this is the best example we've seen so far, anyway. But there we go.
You don't need to keep coming back to this well. Do it once, do it well, leave it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, let's find out what other people thought.
And we've heard from Jeff. Hello, Jeff. And he writes, "It's nice Scotty gets some focus, but he comes off a little creepy. Fortunately, people get a bit. Yeah.
I don't know. Possibly there's an age gap between the actors that." Is the reason for that? I don't know, but yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
Or is he overly possessive, possibly? I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think it's the possessiveness that gets me, rather than necessarily the age gap. I think they're similar ranks, aren't they? She's a lieutenant, he's a lieutenant commander.
Yeah.
So there's not a power difference so much, necessarily.
A little bit, but not
massively. There might be a bit of an age gap.
I think part of my problem is I always think of... Jimmy Doohan as old.
Yeah, because he was 84 when he had his last child, and there was a massive age gap.
And he was older in the movies, obviously, whereas actually he's still one of the older members of the cast. He's not old as Dean, but yeah. So I don't know, but it could be the over possessiveness.
I think it's
don't
the
you touch my woman type
thing.
Yeah,
I think that's what gets me. And Jeff says, fortunately, people get struck by lightning multiple times in this episode.
Indeed,
it is quite amusing. And actually, the lightning effect is not at all bad.
Yeah, very good, very good. So good, in fact, they didn't even bother redoing it in the special effects.
Wow,
they're remastered. So yes, we've heard from Boss. It's another godlike alien. At least this one is actually a god, effectively. A lot of this episode was similar to what we'd seen before. We had a female character introduced just to be the target of blatant sexism and given not much to do other than swoon over the enemy, very similar to Lieutenant MacGyver's in Space Seed. Oh, it wasn't quite as painful as that, was it? No. And at least Palama shows a backbone at the end.
Yeah.
A main character being a bit lecherous was somewhat more disappointing that it was Scotty. Yeah, there you go. Somebody else finding the Scotty thing uncomfortable. An energy field stopping the Enterprise doing anything. I did quite like the big green hand, though. The other members of the landing party being unable to work out something pretty obvious and having to have Kirk explain it to them. Again, that wasn't quite so bad in this episode, but yeah, I guess it was there. On the plus side, Spock not being able to join the landing party did shake up the dynamics a little, yeah. With Chekhov and Scotty down on the planet, everyone got something to do. Even Mr. Kyle got to be on the bridge. Yeah, which is great. And Uhura got to...
Did he replace Spock as science officer because Spock was in command? Because he seemed to go to the science station.
Possibly. And Uhura got to use some of those engineering skills she learnt from Hamer.
Yay!
The other thing I liked was the reaction of the crew to them having to destroy Apollo's power source to free themselves. It was good that it led to a downbeat ending and not big celebrations for beating the bad guy. Yes. This was episode 2 in broadcast order, so someone must have liked it more than me. Right.
What did Sampo and Yona make of this one? I'm very interested in what on earth they make of all the Greek god stuff.
Hello.
Hello.
We just watched Who Mourns for Adonais.
I don't want to know what happens in it.
Yeah. Well, would you like to tell me what happens in it? Not the whole episode this time.
No, I cannot speak. It's unspeakable. it's unbearable. It's full of shit. There's a fleet filled with unmarried women because when they get married, they have to leave their jobs because,
This was just the first minute of the episode when Bones and Kirk were talking about.
Yeah, and
Scott asked her for a coffee, and they were, it's sad to lose an officer. Like, great.
And then the whole episode went downwards after that.
Yeah.
To the hell.
Well, I mean, of course, it wasn't the greatest episode ever, but I mean, Caroline was her name, the way she was sort of...
So you remembered her name and her, people she worked with didn't remember.
Yeah.
She was just named as the girl.
Protect the girl. Well, that was only once. I mean, they talked about Caroline and her lieutenant, so it was fine. It was just one
And
point.
officer.
Of course, I mean, she did seem to fall in love in just like 15 minutes. You were holding up hope that she was charmed somehow, but it did seem to be the case. She was just, totally fine that let's sacrifice the whole crew so that, because it'll hurt him.
I cannot deal with this at all. It's just...
Yeah, and skipping to the end, I mean, it was like domestic abuse. He was throwing lightnings and all that. And then after that, he was still like, look what you made me do, or something like that. And the woman who was there looking beaten, it was like she was sad for him. It was just, very horrible.
I couldn't watch this. I just can't. I cannot understand how this has been aired. Now we are watching it. I fucking watched it and I didn't want to. And...
At the beginning, I was thinking that when Apollo was like, ooh, what a pretty woman, and ooh, you're smart for a woman. Is this what they thought in the 60s is backwards thinking, or was this okay in the 60s? And after watching the episode, I guess
It was never okay.
And I mean, the writers thought, okay, this is completely natural dialogue. Because
what was not completely natural dialogue? The one where Apollo says that you are not supposed to bring Spock because he looks like a pan.
Good old racism. But I think that's why they won in the end. Maybe they should think of leaving at least one officer on the bridge from now on when they go to a dangerous place. But I guess not.
No.
I mean, there was a kernel of a good idea in there about how beings who appear to be gods, they need worship to survive, which is something that like Terry Pratchett and Neil Gaiman at least have based some of their stories around. So that was
nice.
Yeah, but
I have to say too. But it was the only nice things, because I don't know what ancient Greeks would have said if they would have seen the clothes that Apollo made. What was her name? What was the name of the girl?
Caroline.
Caroline Ware.
It's like Marty McFly dressing like a cowboy in Back to the Future 3, I guess.
I guess.
So yeah, did you like the episode?
I didn't like it.
Yeah, I sort of got that vibe.
Now we are officially achieved the bottom of the Star fucking Trek.
This seems to be a weekly occurrence for you.
It's going worse and worse and worse. If things go like worse and worse and worse, would they eventually reach the high top if it's like a loop? Maybe someday it gets way better.
When Strange New World Season 2 starts. Yeah, so hear from you next week then. Right? Come on, don't leave me hanging.
Yeah, I guess, but what is the point when should I enjoy it?
Well, maybe you enjoy seeing how much we've come forward as a society.
Oh, love it.
Okay, well, bye-bye.
Yes, bye.
Bye. You might want to prepare Yona for how bad season 3 is. I'm just saying.
I mean, I get all the points you're making, Yona, but it is also the case that she does stand up to him, and she is strong. And
but it has to be said that, you know, like as they say, the opening few minutes, you get some of the most sexist tripe ever.
Yeah.
No wonder that's going to colour how you watch the rest of the episode.
Absolutely. I mean, it is bollocks. And she is treated as an object of competition between Scotty and Apollo. But she is strong. She does resist him. And in terms of falling in love, I don't think she has. I think probably she has. Although it's not explicit, I think probably she has been.
I think she kind of falls in awe with him.
Yeah, or possibly in lust. I mean, he does look quite nice. He hasn't got a beard, but he does look quite nice.
Yeah, I mean, proper Greek gods ought to have beards, wouldn't they? But there we go.
He should have a beard.
And
but, you know, maybe he's got a massive schlong and she found that quite attractive.
Nice. But yeah, and they went to a domestic abuse place, interestingly.
Which it doesn't surprise me, given the way she got abused. Because it was abuse.
Yes, at least slightly less bad than the way where I went mentally with that, so yeah.
Yeah. And particularly at the end, you know, and he does blame her, and that's what abusers do. And he says, and he tries to blame her as a woman. Look what you made me do, kind of thing, or you weren't there for me, it's your fault. I mean, that is very much. But then, actually, I'm not being funny, but weren't the Greek gods abusive arseholes?
Yes, they were, actually. It's completely in character, unfortunately, so yes. Yeah, I mean, in a sense, if all the sexism was just coming from Apollo, that would be fine.
Yeah, it would, yeah.
It's the fact that it's also coming from our crew as well.
Yeah, and particularly the whole one day she'll find a man and then she'll leave the service. What the actual fuck?
But yes, it would be good if they continued to leave a senior officer on the bridge, but I suspect...
Yes, that would be a good thing to do. I suspect that is not
going to be the case.
No.
Next up we have Llama God.
Llama Scotty, Fixie Tree, There must be some kind of way out of here. All of this has happened before, and all of this, I imagine, is going to happen again. Yes, another episode about a super-powered, magical being that displays mysterious, godlike powers that turns out just to be a super-advanced alien or something. And this time, he's not a pilot, lawyer, president. He's a guy wearing a toga instead, but he's still a bit of a dick. Yep, that's Apollo through and through. Yeah, no, it's not the same guy that we covered in depth on that other podcast, but he is actually the Greek god, or kind of wasn't. He was an alien that visited Greece and gave birth to the idea of the god. This is interesting because obviously this is the whole Chariot of the Gods idea, although without the Egyptian bent that Battlestar Galactica had. But it is pretty much the same idea, so I'm assuming that this whole alien races seeded life on Earth idea came to the fore in the 60s, during the boom in the UFO sightings phenomena in the States, so it makes sense that's kind of happening. And in terms of this being a very similar idea to what was used in Battlestar Galactica, obviously by the time of the 70s, Chariots of the Gods had been written, and you've got to wonder, did Glenn Larson actually watch this episode of Star Trek and get inspiration from here as well? Glenn Larson ripping off something else to make his own series? What's the likelihood of that happening, eh? Anyway, but yeah, this is a classic-style Trek episode, isn't it? A classic Trek episode? I don't know. Classic ideas, classic tropes, I guess, but whether the episode itself is a classic or not, probably less so. So yeah, we have the Greek god Apollo here, and yeah, he is a bit of a dick, isn't he? Yeah, no, he's just a nice guy. He's just a nice guy, and all he wants is to be loved, and he'll do anything in his power to get it, and he will make you love him. Yeah, he is your typical nice guy, isn't he? Yeah, he is just an abusive ass, which does make this episode uncomfortable viewing at times, but this is, I guess, is kind of the point. The actor playing Apollo, I forgot his name, does actually do a decent job of letting a little bit of vulnerability shine through at times. You can see that he does genuinely want the companionship. He is lonely, but at the same time, this is not how you do it. And again, I guess that's how typical abusers are as well. And yeah, it's just not on. His behaviour is definitely more than a little not on. He does come across as a bit of a dick, and more than a little rapey with his actions towards Carolyn. After Apollo dies at the end of the episode, Kirk does opine, would it have hurt us to have gathered just a few laurel leaves? And no. You do not acquiesce to the whims of an abuser like this. You just don't know. Yeah, it would have been interesting to have learned things from him, because obviously he was a super advanced alien race, but yeah, no, you don't do nice with a guy like that. Of course, though, Apollo fits right in this episode as well, because this episode is just dripping with misogyny, and it's awful right from the get-go. When Lieutenant Carolyn, I didn't ever catch her surname. It was probably said right at the start of the episode, but then she's always referred to, rather unprofessionally, by first name throughout the entire episode. She's referred to not by how good she is at her duties, but by how attractive she is, and the crew are pining. And one day, if you find the right man, and off she'll go out of the service. Yeah, you can't work in Starfleet if you're married, because you have to be subservient to the man. Yeah, very progressive, like it. I don't like it. Apollo telling her that she's a wise woman as well, which prompted Joe to explain fuck off, as you'd quite expect. Yeah, this is just dripping in it. And Scotty is just way too possessive of Carol in this episode. The way he acts is like, yeah, he wants to be a shining knight in armour, but yeah, you know, she is a grown woman, she can do her own thing as well, so you don't treat her like that, Scotty. I mean, yes, that was very much a prevalent attitude in the 60s, I imagine, but it's deeply uncomfortable today. Still, at least all he did was be over-possessive, and that's something for future episodes. On the plus side, though, Carolyn does save the day by taking advantage of Apollo's neediness, with a wonderful withering put down, I could no more love you than I could a bacteria, like it. Say that one for all the other guys in the bars, ladies. But yeah, it's just not comfortable viewing at all. It does give us some nice imagery, though. The giant hand at the start is a classic image, isn't it? And the hand actually also somehow manages to outact William Shatner, which is a feat indeed, so let's give it a big hand, eh? And also the imagery of Apollo himself in his unconvincing garden and the temple and wearing his dangerously revealing toga. Yeah, it's all classic imagery, and from that point of view, it is a classic, but for the ideas, not necessarily for the execution. No, definitely not for the execution. So yeah, definitely a curiosity, this, not one I'd come back to. As ever, I'll be interested to find out what anyone else makes of this. I hope everyone's finding themselves in incredibly attractive positions, and until next time, glory to you and your cast.
I'm in a particularly attractive position because I have my knee in my nose. Anyway.
Wow. I love the idea that the hand acts the Shat. That's yes. Brilliant. I love that. It's
certainly a more restrained performance than Shatner. Yeah.
And I said fuck off at the exact same point that Joe did.
Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, Scotty is way too possessive. It's just wrong.
He is. It feels.
Did Glenn A. Larson nick this? Quite possibly. He nicked so much other fucking stuff, didn't he?
Yes, unfortunately, because we've already used Follow Mr. Apollo because of Galactica, so we can't use that for this episode. Hey-ho. Cheers, sir.
Thank you. What about Drew and Tracy? Does Drew think this is a classic?
Hello, so we just watched Mourns, Adonais.
And what do we think of that one, then?
I think it falls into the category of iconic, but most definitely not a classic.
There was a lot wrong with this.
Yeah, it is, definitely, yeah. But the biggest one, I would say, a bit boring.
Yeah. We didn't
this goes on forever.
Yeah, we didn't talk very much through this because there was quite a lot going on, but at the same time, there was nothing going on.
Yeah. Well, let's start off.
Go on, then.
The big green hand.
Yeah, the green hand gang.
The big green hand. That's the bit that I'm telling you is iconic, and obviously we can mark off on the bingo cards. Godlike being.
Bingo!
Exactly. But yeah, apart from that, it's just...
Alright, so let's go through some points.
Okay.
There was a lot of sexism.
Casual sexism.
Going on in here, and it started off quite surprisingly with Bones. When he said about how when he was talking about Caroline, and he said, she'll find a mate and then she'll leave the service, inferring that women can't be in service when they've got a partner.
I'm willing to overlook because it's the 60s and they're all idiots at that point,
which was really bad. But also there was a touch of racism in here as well, because Kirk calls Scotty a thistlehead.
No.
What the fuck is that about?
Yep, casual racism. That's also on the bingo card.
That was just really crazy.
We liked when Uhura was sitting on the console, didn't we? You don't often see that.
You made me laugh.
Yeah, so she's going to do an arse style, hasn't she? Tonight, Starfleet Command.
So let's talk about Apollo.
Yes. Yep.
So I couldn't quite understand how he had the green hand that was supposed to be his force, was holding the Enterprise, but also he was off doing other things and not concentrating.
He's good at multitasking.
But that didn't a little bit make sense to me. Not that the episode was meant to make sense anyway. But then I did laugh because when the first time he kind of became giant.
Yes.
And they're all kind of standing a little bit downwind of him. And I said to you, I hope he's got some undercrackers on, otherwise Caroline is really going to have a bit of a treat there, or not.
Bit of a view,
It just felt a bit weird. And at the end, I actually felt a bit sorry for him.
Yeah, I do as well. I do feel like
him.
that. I mean, obviously, he's a bit like this episode, being in the 60s and the casual sexism, racism. He's a man at a time, isn't he? Or a god at a time. He's like, wants them to worship. And at the end, he's quite upset. He's like, I'm rejected.
But that's
and all
it.
That,
he thrives on being adored and treasured and loved.
And we've moved on
and that's
from
what he's looking for. But in return, he's willing to make his mate a god and stuff like that. So he's willing to give a lot of love, so says he, in return. And obviously they have to make Caroline reject that so they can
I think she's the hero of the episode.
And I felt very sorry for him at the end.
I do when he's crying and that. And I think she's the hero of it. Like, she was obviously, I don't know, in love, stroke, infatuated, whatever, and she just turns completely against him on the orders of Captain Kirk.
There were some good quips here from Chekhov.
Yes.
There was quite a few funny
There was some Russian stuff going on
in there. And yet again, Kirk's off doing what he needs to do and Spock is held in command.
He is. I liked it as well, though, and he's sorting out all the equations and sending her off to another department.
And actually
Maths
gave
is the answer.
Quite a nice compliment in this one.
He did, yes.
He's a little bit saying, get a fucking wriggle on, woman. You're taking your time. But actually, I can't think of anyone who's more qualified to get this done. So
of course.
Get down with yourself. So this was all right. I kind of like...
Yeah.
I picked up my phone halfway and he was like, off your phone.
It's definitely a bit of a boring
and for me, I know that's a bit like, it's a bit of a drag.
He's tired grounds
Even
of stuff.
Mitty is fucked off with this episode.
Yes, exactly, No, it wasn't the best by any means. It's iconic, but not a classic.
Yeah.
I'll leave it at that.
All right, shall we leave it there then?
Okay.
See you later, guys. Bye.
Bye. Even Mitty is bored with godlike aliens. Well,
yeah.
I didn't find it as boring as now the episode titles start to fade from my memory.
Oh, they're never staying.
The one with Zeph and Cochrane in it.
Yeah,
that was a bore
That
fest.
was boring.
At least some stuff happens in this anyway.
Yeah, and I like the Drew's response to the casual sexism and the casual racism and everything else. It's the 60s and they're all idiots.
Yeah. Fair enough.
But you're right, she is the hero of the episode.
Definitely, yes.
Absolutely. But I didn't feel sorry for him at all.
No, I didn't feel sorry for him, but I appreciated the fact that you clearly grief-stricken.
He felt sorry for himself.
Yes. Here am I, God being abandoned again, sort of thing. I thought, and again, that's the quality of the acting.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't feel sorry for him in terms of the fact that I wasn't sympathetic to him, but on the other hand, I could see how he was upset about that.
Yeah.
So
I knew why he was upset, but he was a twat, and if he'd behaved better, he wouldn't have happened.
Yes, I guess.
Yeah. So I don't have any sympathy for him at all.
No.
But I do think that the idea that he cries and gets upset, that's not wrong. If you see what I
it's
mean.
realistic.
Yeah.
Chekhov did get the funnies in this again with the old Cheshire Cat, except it wasn't Cheshire, was it?
Yeah. And Thistlehead, is that actually a real... I've never heard that.
No, that's far more acceptable than a Saracen, I'm afraid. So,
It's still wrong, though.
But not anywhere near as bad, let's face it.
No.
So I think that one's completely made up and therefore probably ignorable.
Yeah.
Anyway...
Well, what does Parry think of Thistlehead?
Well, indeed, yes. Will get mentioned.
Parry here to talk about who mourns for Adonais. Or Adonais? Aberdonian? I used to be absolutely sure it was Adonis, and then I heard someone pronounce it differently, and now I'm full of self-doubt. So, this episode... it's a bit of a grab bag of old TOS stuff. It's almost like you kind of hit a random TOS plot generator. There's a lot of stuff we've seen before in this, and I do to an extent mean that as a criticism. We have some form of alien posing as a god, or at least superpowered alien being. Again, I think this might be the first time we've seen an alien posing as a god, but it's doing the job of what is normally a sentient computer. We've got, like, say, our godlike powered being, which we've, of course, seen Charlie X, Squire of Gothos. Takes an interest in the female crew members. Again, we saw a bit of that in the Squire of Gothos. Space Seed again, your female crew member becomes infatuated. Yeah, it's kind of by the numbers Trek. Now, that's not to say that it's all bad. I love the crazy visuals. I love just the giant hand coming and grabbing the ship. That's fun stuff. And Apollo himself does definitely look Greek godlike. You can't fault him on that. They cast him well. And I like the fact that he did have that echo in his voice for most of it. They did this sort of overdubbing or whatever it is to make his voice sound echoey and godlike. And I mean, the core of the idea is quite good. These aliens who were the Greek gods want, he's the last of them, and he wants worshippers. And indeed, you're almost asked by the episode to kind of feel sorry for him. There's definitely an idea of him being lonely, although they don't quite play that up. Sadly, because I think we've had the experience with other ones, he comes across occasionally as petulant, and I think maybe playing up his loneliness would have been a bit of a better concept, but how that kind of defaults into worship rather than him straight up going, "Hello, come here, worship me." It just seemed to be a bit of a jump, and it meant that you lost sympathy for him, more so particularly when he goes for the I can't remember the character's name, but the female love interest. When he is just standing there blowing her with a bit of a wind, but there's a definite hint of basically her being, she's cut and bruised by the end of it, and the way she looks, it's very reminiscent to someone who'd been beaten. And so when at the end they're kind of trying to do the bit of you should feel sympathetic for him because he's the last of his species going into the wind. It's like, yeah, but the last of his species was an absolute shit. And that's why I think that's actually undermines it. I think if we'd not had that scene, I think the last scene would have had a bit more oomph to it and a bit more punch, and you'd have had more sympathy for him. There's some other good stuff on it. I like the stuff with Spock. Once again, and I'm not saying this is a pattern, you take Shatner off to go and film with some of the other cast members and leave other people on the bridge of the Enterprise, and Uhura gets lines and stuff to do. I mean, good God, Spock gets some good bits, so the whole crew's kind of working. You get a feeling of a crew. Also, not a great episode for Scotty. Not just that he's wandering around like a lovesick puppy and maybe diving in where you shouldn't, but God, how many times does Scotty get zapped, hit, thrown across the room? He must have been in the right state when he came back up. Poor lad. And yeah, there is that weird conversation at the beginning where they talk about, oh yes, she'll find a man and then leave the service. Like, women join Starfleet to find a husband and then go off and have kids. I know it's the attitudes of the time, but come on. Yeesh. So yeah, overall, it's kind of got seen it, been there, done that, and the bits that should have impact, I think, are undermined by the choices they made. Like say, they seem to be wanting us to sympathise with a wife beater at the end, which I'm not really willing to do. But overall, I mean, it's not terrible. It did quite a lot of entertaining stuff. It had a classic Bill Thies outfit. I mean, that some tape was definitely doing some heavy lifting, and I do mean that literally as an engineer. In that outfit, yeah, definitely one of a Bill Thies classic. So yeah, all it remains for me to say is do keep up the good work. I always look forward to the podcast, and I hope to be back in the next one. But until then, bye for now.
Bye, sir.
Bye.
Yeah, definitely. If they dropped the assault scene,
yeah,
the ending would have been a lot better.
Absolutely, yes. It just wasn't.
And play up the loneliness more,
yeah,
rather than the petulancy, and yeah.
Yeah, it would have worked a lot better. And okay, it's not a gratuitous rape scene because it's not graphic, but it's a gratuitous assault scene.
Yes.
It's not needed. Yeah, you're right. Take Shatner off the bridge and other people get things to do.
It's
funny
interesting
that,
isn't it?
Yeah.
But it is, yes, the random plot generator is kicking in, isn't it?
It is. It is a bit. Yeah. And yeah, you're right. That tape is doing some heavy lifting. I have yet to find a difference between the tape that you can supposedly use to keep clothes up with no bra and tape that sticks a rug to your floorboards.
Ow. Right.
Just thought I'd mention that.
Well then, thank you to everybody who's fed back.
Thank you.
Next time on the original series in 2 weeks' time, on Thursday the 16th, we'll be looking at what was the first episode shown of Season 2, Amok Time.
Oh, nice.
Get your giant cotton buds out, folks. Here we go.
Yep.
And next week, we will be covering Lower Decks Season 3's episode, Room for Growth. And that's on Thursday the 9th.
I've got no idea. Episodes mean... Well, they mean a little to me with ones I've seen before, like a lot before, like Amok Time. Room for Growth, no, sorry, I don't know what that is.
Let's just say the engineering crew will get shipped off for some R&R against their wishes.
Ooh, that one.
Yes.
Oh, I liked that one.
Okay. Well, one way or another, we'll catch you in the next couple of weeks' time. Take care. Cheery bye.
Bye.
The opening music for this podcast was provided by the talented Drew Barker.
The artwork was created by Andy Mastedon.
All music referenced is for illustrative purposes only, and no copyright infringement is intended.
Find our website at borgcast.libsyn.com.
And we have a YouTube channel as well.
You can find the Borgcast playouts on Spotify for your listening pleasure.
Visit our Tumblr site at borgcast.tumblr.com, where you'll find images accompanying the episodes discussed in this cast.
Send emails or MP3s to borgcast@gmail.com.
Or you can find us over on Mastedon. Our addresses are on the show notes for this podcast.
Shut it down!